Guys, Texas Tech, quick question. Trump or Biden?
Neither.
Hello witches, and welcome back to Activist Witch, where we discuss witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and in today's video we're going to talk a bit about why it kinda is important that you go vote. This year is going to be an election year here in the UK and in the US. And what does it have to do with witchcraft? Well, you know how we talk about intention and doing our bit? That's kinda the point we're going to discuss here. But before we get started, let me remind you that I've opened a Ko-fi, which is an alternative to Patreon that takes less from creators. And on there, you can do a one-off donation, a monthly donation, or even get a tarot reading with me, Italian style. The low-income option starts at £5. And if you decide to support me there, thank you so very much. All profits from my tarot readings for the foreseeable future will go in support of Coaches to Gaza, who are part of the mutual aid groups that support Palestinians evacuating to Egypt. So, this video exists because I have seen more than a few videos supposedly made and aimed at progressive people, like I guess fancy myself being. If you're here, you have an idea. We talk about intersectionality, feminism, even socialism. So I've noticed these videos, and they tend to be very dismissive of the situation because, let's be honest, the situation is awful.
Guys, Texas Tech, quick question. Trump or Biden?
Neither.
In America, the option is between Biden genocide and Trump genocide and worse. And here in the UK, it's not like we are much better. The UK and the US are both very complicit in the Palestinian genocide. I've talked at length about that. You can check my videos on Palestine specifically. But then here is the issue. A lot of people are disengaging from these elections. It's like voting doesn't matter. Politicians are all bad, so why should voting matter? Now, I need to make a premise. I know that how voting works in the US with the Electoral College and all that kind of things is even more effed up than it is here in the UK. The main issue with the idea of voting doesn't work, especially on the progressive, so on the left side, is that despite how that might seem reasonable on the surface, it's actually been part of the strategies for vote suppression for decades, if not hundreds of years. You might have noticed that this kind of discourse tends to go around, especially within minoritized communities. And that is absolutely not by chance. If you're part of a minority, you tend to vote or to have preferences towards more leftist policies. And that is not by chance, because if you're part of a minority, your interests will align more likely towards policies that are leaning towards the left. We want equality, we want solidarity, we want people to be granted a basic level of dignity. If you've checked out my video on capitalism and witchcraft, you might have noticed that I mentioned Keynesian economics. Before neoliberalism, that was part of the leaning towards the left kind of economics that would allow pretty much everyone to start off from a better level than that would allow everyone to start off from a better starting point, a more level plan, if you will. The second thing that came to mind after seeing all these videos that seem to be made by people like me, by minorities, from minorities, telling ourselves, oh, voting doesn't matter, was something that I saw in the Netflix documentary that was called The Great Hack. Do you remember that, about Cambridge Analytica? Now, if you don't know what Cambridge Analytica was, that's a great documentary, go check. It was about how Facebook, well, Meta really, but at the time Facebook, was scraping data from everyone to serve specific kind of advertisement that weren't necessarily portraying facts, but they were just knowing who they were served to, and so people had this very different perception of different realities according to their bubble. The work of Cambridge Analytica affected our world in what they did in support of the 2016 referendum to leave Europe in the UK, Brexit, and the 2016 election that saw Trump follow Obama in the US. So all these ideas that were definitely towards the right started to come on with the help of this data scraped. In the Great Hack documentary, they talk about the first test that Cambridge Analytica did, and actually that happened in Trinidad and Tobago. The entire aim of their campaign was actually for voter suppression. Here's why.
As a firm, we are a behavior change agency. The holy grail of communications is when you can start to change behavior. Trinidad, this is a great, interesting case history of how we look at problems. There are two main political parties, one for the blacks and one for the Indians. And, they screw each other. So we were working for the Indians. We went to the client and we said, we want to target the youth. And we try and increase apathy. The campaign had to be non-political because the kids don't care about politics. It had to be reactive because they're lazy. So we came up with this campaign, which was all about be part of the gang, do something cool, be part of a movement. And it was called the Do So campaign.
It means I'm not going to vote.
Do so, don't vote.
The salute of resistance that is known to all across Trinidad and Tobago. Do so! Do so! Do so!
It's a sign of resistance against, not the government, against politics and voting and stuff. They're making their own YouTube videos. This is the Prime Minister's house. It's being graffitied. It was carnage. We knew that when it came to voting, all the Afro-Caribbean kids wouldn't vote, because they do so. But all the Indian kids would do what their parents told them to do, which is go out and vote. They had a lot of fun doing this, but they're not going to go against their parents' will.
Thank God for the guidance that has brought us here to this victory. Thank you. Thank you, God.
And the difference in 18 to 35-year-old turnout was like 40%. And that swung the election about 6%, which was all we needed in an election that's very close. We now undertake 10 national campaigns for Prime Minister or President each year. So quite a few this year.
Nigeria.
Brexit campaign. Oh, and the Brexit campaign. Yeah.
Okay.
We don't talk about that.
Oops, we won.
The entire strategy, the entire point for them was just to get people not to vote, because sometimes that is just good enough to allow people that will instead go to vote to basically make choices for everyone. The surprise that there was here in the UK when Leave won against Remain for the Brexit referendum was literally based on the fact that we all sort of took for granted that of course we're going to stay in Europe. What country would vote to put sanctions upon themselves? Well, wait and see. Trying to disengage people from voting is exactly all that is needed. It's that quote, you must have heard it, for evil to prevail, it just takes for good people to do nothing. Yeah, that is a misquote of Burke. The closest thing that I can find is actually a Jefferson quote that says, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent, which means the same thing. Voting for a president, for a prime minister, for a government to be on the left or the right is going to affect your life directly because of the policies that they will bring. Now, I know that the idea is, if you've been paying attention to the world since October 7, it's kind of problematic that none of the candidates talk about putting an end, a proper end to the genocide in Gaza. So how can we possibly want to be involved in something that is voting for genocide or genocide? Here's the thing. Even as minorities, so even as a person of color, as a queer person, living in the Western world, what they try to call themselves as civilized, but really colonizers, give us privilege, whether we like it or not, whether we feel like we experience it or not. And voting, in a way, it's part of that privilege. Rejecting the idea that if we don't vote, we will not be part of that choice is not actually that effective as it sounds. Disengaging does not allow us to wash our conscience from the consequences. It's just wanting to be righteous and not feeling that weight on our own conscience. But it will still be there because we're here and we should be doing something, anything that we can. I think the way that Western privilege in deciding to engage or not in elections was best exemplified by this post that I saw on Tumblr.
If my options are to vote for the guy who is committing genocide or vote for the guy who will also probably commit genocide, then sorry to say, I'm not voting for fucking either of them. Plain and simple. Like, I'm going to be completely honest. I could care less about the future of this country if complicity in genocide is the cost.
In other words, I know the trolley is going to kill more people this way, but the lever is icky and it's more important that my hands don't feel gross than it is that fewer people die. I'm a good person. Watch me continue to shovel fuel into the trolley and preach against its trajectory whilst doing absolutely nothing about it.
When you don't want to engage in voting because both candidates have very bad stances of one issue, refusing to touch the lever of the trolley problem basically means you're just letting people die anyway.
By existing as a citizen in and paying taxes to the imperial core, we automatically hold complicity in imperialist oppression because we are literally footing the bill for it. That is just the basic nature of being born to privilege in systems of oppression in general. We can be disadvantaged and marginalised in every single other consideration, and we still have to understand and cope with this and ensure we leverage it as effectively as possible. Voting abstinence sabotage does not absolve us of our responsibility to do everything in our power to lessen harm, but it does show that when our personal morals aren't satisfied, we retreat into, imperialist this time, privilege to wash our hands of the situation and declare it's not our fault and it's not our problem.
The idea is if both parties are horrible on the matter of the genocide, then you look at the next issue, and the next issue might be social housing or it might be LGBT rights. The thing is, they will not be the same on everything, and there are other issues and other minorities to take into consideration. Deciding to disengage does not help anyone, not even the issue that you first cared for. And it's ultimately hard because it means that engaging is responsibility, is understanding that until the system is changed, which might be well far away and not necessarily something that we will see in our lifetime, there will still be horrible things that happen. Disengaging will not exempt us from those, though. And the only thing that we can do is starting to make action so that possibly things will change in the future. Without doing anything, you're pretty positive on the fact that things will not change indeed. But really, Isha, what does this have to do with witchcraft and activism? As I said before, there is an uncanny similarity between what we do when we approach a spell and the entire point of engaging in politics and voting as well. When you cast a spell, you don't just limit your intention or action to those minutes or hours that you're spending, I don't know, in front of a candle. But there's also all the work that you need to do afterwards. You need to actually, I don't know, send an application for a job. You need to go out, meet people, date if you want a boyfriend and find in love. All those kind of things have an equivalent in going out and voting and protesting and lobbying politicians. All of those actions are the equivalent of the work you put in a spell to make that happen once you have already tried to increase your chances with magic. Casting your vote is casting your intent. It's choosing a party or a representative that is most likely to enact the change that you want to see. But you do not stop there. I mean, here in the UK, the Tory party has literally tried to make protesting illegal. The simple fact that Labour would still allow us to protest and therefore to pressure them is what allows us to keep doing the work. And those are the things that you need to consider no matter how dire the situation we are in, because otherwise no action taken means that things are not going to get better. I also don't think that Labour should be the only alternative to the Tories. There is an entire movement that has been happening since 2 elections ago that is just about vote whatever candidate has the best options to unseat the Tories. For that campaign, I'll send you to the link down in the description below. Basically, you put your postcode, you find out what your constituency is, and whoever is the candidate that was like second to the Tories or like best placed to not let the Tories win, that's the one you vote for. It's strategic vote. Again, the best advice that I can give you in such an important electoral year is to keep your eyes peeled, learn, ask yourself questions, and put things to comparison, because I guarantee on some points, one of the candidates will still be less dangerous than the other. And that is your starting point to then cast your vote, cast your intention, but then go further. Lobby, pressure, protest, write to your MPs and representatives. That's how we bring on change. I hope this video was useful. If you have any questions, you can leave them here in the comments. And until the next video, I really hope that we can hex the patriarchy together, because boy oh boy, if there's need for it.